Fox's Ryan Mayer. I'm Mary Corsetti, and this is Fox News.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumont or call 646-1463.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña is taking your local favorite dishes and serve them with extra flair. Mezcla is ready to serve you and your family for your dine-in experience and takeout services. To ensure everyone's safety and comfort, Team Mezcla has taken further steps in maintaining a clean and sanitized area for you and your family while dining in. For more information, please call 479-2652 or 479-2653. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam.
Hafadade, this is Carl from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future. Whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community, our dedicated team in Guam and on the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Talk Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 66 years. Talk Tales with Bob Klitzkie is also brought to you by Security Title, providing solutions for complex real estate transactions.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It's a good way to start a week, isn't that real, Joe Cruz?
Sir, yes, sir.
Yeah. I start every episode of Tall Tales with the respective reading of the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. Tips off those first-time listeners, rare as they might be, that Tall Tales is a constitutional-oriented program. Pay a lot of attention here to individual rights, freedoms, the Bill of Rights, the United States Constitution, the Second Amendment. I'm always on the lookout for something dealing with the Second Amendment where someone or someones are trying to take it away from us. And I found another example. House of Representatives Bill 5717, which was introduced by one of the best friends that Guam ever had in Congress, and I'll come back to that. See if you could figure out who he is. That House bill will add a 30% tax on all guns and a 50% tax on all ammo, and will require a federal license to purchase both. They're trying to push this through immediately. Also, if it passed, you'd need a federal license to own, handle, or shoot any guns you already own. So this bill pens in Congress. The bill is online, if you'd look around for it a little bit. The bill pens in the House of Representatives. I would not be surprised if it passed the House of Representatives, there being a Democrat majority there. I think the chances of it passing the senators don't even rise to the level of slim and none, so long as the Republicans can hang on to the Senate. If the Republicans don't hang on to the Senate, you might not be able to hang on to your guns. Frightening thought. I mentioned that H.R. 5717 was introduced by one of the best friends that Guam ever had in Congress. This guy was really concerned about Guam, looking out for us. He was afraid, about 10 years ago, he was afraid that if more military assets were deployed to Guam, the island might tip over and capsize. Now, who out there in the international radio listening audience knows that member of Congress's name? A representative from Georgia. Okay, well, if you happen to know his name, put it on Facebook and we'll give you a round of applause. All right, so from there, we go to the part of the program known as Zemi Ikotny. And of course, some things never change. Daily News does not believe in local editorials. Why should they when they can run stuff from Gannett Service, News Service, or USA Today like they did today, which 99% of the time bashes Donald Trump. Today is no exception. Here's the beginning of the editorial. Time to get serious about COVID-19 testing. What is the correct way to say COVID-19, Real Joe Cruz?
Wuhan virus, sir.
You got it. Time to get serious about Wuhan virus testing. As recently as May, President Donald Trump boasted of how his administration would embark on the most advanced and robust testing system anywhere in the world by far. And you can just imagine where the rest of the editorial goes. I'm not going to spend any time on it. Now, the Daily News is right on point today, saying things that I have said myself even more effectively than I could say them myself. So here's the headline for today's editorial in the Post. Who's watching the costly, once secret deals at the port? And the editorial starts out, Luis Rivera Baza is no attorney. Let me reread that sentence. Luis Rivera Baza is no attorney. Yeah, we have an also known as for him on the program, which is what again, Real Joe Cruz?
The cleaner, sir?
Say again?
The cleaner?
The Wolf.
Oh, the wolf. That's right. The wolf.
Yeah, the Wolf. Taking it from a character in what movie?
Pulp Fiction, sir.
There you go. Yeah, Warren Wolf was the fixer. When people really screwed things up, they'd bring in the Wolf to fix it. And that's exactly what the port did. They brought Luis Baza in. They didn't have a lawyer, so they're going to send the Wolf to the Civil Service Commission to represent them. But before the hearing, this was the Mano hearing, before the matter even came on for hearing, the Wolf presented a 12-page request to the Board of Spelunkers at the port, trying to persuade them to settle with the 4 remaining members of the Port 7 whose case is still pending. And the port went along with it. But we weren't able to get any information on the settlements. Council would not go along with it. And then just a couple days ago, the Attorney General said, you got to turn that stuff over. You can't keep that secret. And that was the opportunity for me to teach the Real Joe Cruz a new phrase, which was sweet lemons, right, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember what sweet lemons means?
The opposite of sour grapes?
Yeah. True enough. True enough. Yeah, sweet lemons means something comes along that you really don't want, but you try to make the best of it, and you try to put on a happy face, right? Yeah, well, our team got eliminated from the tournament, but it's good though, because it's too far to drive to the tournament. So I'm kind of glad they lost. Sweet lemons. Well, Rory said he's glad that information had to be turned over, because he wanted to turn it over all along, but the lawyers wouldn't let him. Yeah. Yeah, 5,000 stand-up comedians out of work in the United States, and Rory thinks he can make you laugh with a line like that. All right, so here's the editorial. Luis Rivera Baza is no attorney, so it's a big red flag when he single-handedly signs on behalf of the Port Authority of Guam various settlement agreements that are now costing the port more than $2 million. These settlements involve the Port 7 former managers and employees who were fired for their alleged role in a questioned workers' comp claim during a previous gubernatorial administration. The total settlements for the Port 7 will exceed $3.5 million, and 5 of the settlements, after years of litigation, were recently signed by Baza, also known as the Wolf. Governor Lou Leon Guerrero announced December 13, 2019, that Baza, with the Civil Service Commission, who was with the Civil Service Commission years ago, will fill the Deputy General Manager seat at the port, a position Connie Jo Shinohara had vacated. Shinohara had been tasked to review the terminations of the Port 7 and whether they should be rehired. The port had been fighting the Port 7 cases until the new gubernatorial administration took office. It wasn't publicly revealed why Shinohara left her job as Deputy General Manager at the port, which paid 6 figures. And you recall the departure of Shinohara and the advent of the Wolf was not a personnel matter. It was more a matter of choreography. Because you had Connie Jo Shinohara before the board waving goodbye, saying, "I'm out of here." And as she exits stage left, Luis Rivera Baza, the new Deputy General Manager, enters stage right to a round of applause coordinated by Rory Respicio. So the Wolf comes in and takes over. And then I mentioned, that although Rory said they had to get rid of Mike Phillips so they could hire in-house counsel because it would be so much cheaper, well, they don't even have in-house counsel yet. A guy named Joe McDonald lasted maybe 6 weeks, and after that they didn't have counsel. But the Wolf, as I mentioned at the beginning of this little chat, jumped in and was kind of a lawyer without portfolio with his persuasive memorandum and his potential appearance before the Civil Service Commission. So that's how this came down. After the Wolf replaced Connie Jo Shinohara, now we can speculate, why did Connie Jo Shinohara leave an apparently good job, which she assumed as soon as the Leon Guerrero administration was sworn in? Was it, I know what it was, Real Joe Cruz. She wanted to spend more time with her family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even childless bachelors quit for that reason. You take a man who's 55 years old and never been married in his life, no children. Why did you quit your job? I want to spend more time with my family. Figuring that nobody's going to question that, family is kind of out of bounds, off limits. So maybe Connie Jo Shinohara left because she wanted to spend more time with her family. Or maybe she got a better job We haven't heard anything. We don't even know. In fact, be an interesting book title. Whatever happened to Connie Jo Shinohara? Or maybe when she got involved with what Rory wanted her to do, she said, I'm not going to do this. This is not something that I, in good conscience, can do. I know that if I don't do it, it won't sit well with Rory and the board. I might get canned. Heck with it. I'm out of here. I don't know what it was. But these are the reasons that people resign high-paying jobs. So the story says it hasn't been publicly revealed why Shinohara left her job as deputy general manager at the port, which paid 6 figures. What we do know is when Baza took over, he wasted no time reinstating one of the Port 7 under the settlement agreements. And within several months of his becoming port deputy general manager, Baza signed off on all 5 remaining Port 7 settlement agreements, and all have been reinstated to their jobs. Thanks to Baza, the following got their jobs back and some settlement money, some of which will be repaid in installments. I want to stop here for a second and put my 2 cents worth in. I've been down this road before with you, but we have an elaborate system, personnel system, merit system in our government of Guam. If if an employee commits misconduct, management must give him what's called a notice of proposed adverse action. And this tells the employee what it was, what misconduct he committed, lays out the evidence that management has, tells him what management is going to do to him or do for him because of the misconduct. Management can demote, that is, reduce a person's position and salary, suspend, give him a vacation without pay, or terminate, fire the employee. And the employee has an opportunity to come in and have a face-to-face with the director within 10 days of receiving the notice of proposed, and explain to the director why he shouldn't be. Oh boy, that's another reason not to let you and I have the weekend off, because when we come back we got to be retrained. Real Joe Cruz.
Sir, yes, sir.
Yeah. So the employee has a chance to go before the director and explain why they, not he, they should not be fired. They can bring a lawyer with them. They can submit documents. They can even bring in witnesses. Management then makes its decision and issues what's called a final notice of adverse action, which has to be given to the employee. Once the employee has that final notice, he can then appeal to the Civil Service Commission. If the Civil Service finds that there was clear and convincing evidence that the employee did commit the misconduct and that the punishment was appropriate, and that the notice of final adverse action was served in a timely fashion, then the bust is good and the employee stays terminated. If not, the employee gets his job back with back pay subject to mitigation and attorney's fees. It is really a pro-employee setup. Now, if the employee should lose at the Civil Service Commission, he can file a petition for judicial review with the Superior Court. And he kind of, the record comes before the court, and the court reviews it, and if the court finds that it's a bad bust, employee is reinstated. If the employee loses again, he then may appeal to the Supreme Court of Guam and go through that. So there are an abundance of safeguards built into the system to look out to protect the rights of the employee. The government loses a fair number of cases because the deck is so stacked against against the government and in favor of the employee. But this is my preference, what I like to see. When these things happened, I like to see the process completed. Because even if I disagree with the result, if the process is not tainted by something that's corrupt or wrong, I figure, well, okay, that's the best we could do. But when we terminate the process before it's completed, like happened here, I don't like it. Because the first word that pops into my large mouth begins with an F and ends with an X. So when the thing is, when the wolf comes along and jerks the rug out from under all these cases, I'm thinking, okay, was the fix on? Was justice done? Was my money protected? Were the ratepayers at the port protected? Or did somebody corruptly do somebody a favor? That's the reason that these things should run through to completion. And that's exactly what didn't happen. And here's how much it cost us. For Lenora Leon Guerrero, she gets $189,316 back wages, leave credit, attorney's fees of $28,800. Josette Havalosa, $409,356 in back pay, $48,437 in attorney's fees. Bernadette Mano, $646,988 in back pay, $131,915 in attorney's fees, $131,000 in attorney's fees. Francis Tarcisia Cepeda, also known as Francis Tarcisia Areola, $437,268. Annual leave, sick leave, $87,453 in attorney's fees. Vivian Castro Leon, $296,082 back pay, legal fees of $307,545. In other words, the legal fees were $11,000 more than the back pay. That takes some doing. So that's what happened. Now, there's something that I've mentioned before, and I hope the newspaper will dig into this. It's called the doctrine of mitigation of damages. When an employee is fired, he has a duty to go out and find employment. And if he can't show that he tried to find employment, he doesn't get any back pay. But if he does find employment, whatever he makes on that employment is deducted from his back pay, so that there's no windfall. Now, I know at least one of those people had their own business. So they made some money during this time. So I'm wondering, did the wolf, as he settled these cases, invoke the doctrine of mitigation of damages, or just say, well, here's the total amount of money that you missed because you were terminated, we'll give it all to you? Because there's nothing at all in this whole set of transactions that would cause anyone to go along with it. And you remember how often we give anybody the benefit of the doubt, right? Real Joe Cruz?
0.0% of the time, sir.
When was the last time we ever gave anybody the benefit of the doubt?
There was never a time, sir.
Never a time. Giving someone the benefit of the doubt means the facts that they present don't add up to the proposition that they are presenting. But you say, well, facts don't add. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Usually an extremely bad mistake. Okay, let's take a short break and we'll come right back to the commercial port.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
They're back. Any footlong is a $5 footlong when you buy one at regular price. At participating locations, Subway, eat fresh.
Talk Tells with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties, doing real estate ever since 1978, 14 years here on Guam. Call Maria Miller from Horizon Properties, 777-7792.
And now, back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to.
First meeting with his board of spelunkers. Remember what the word spelunker means, Real Joe Cruz?
Cavers, sir.
Yeah.
Cavers.
Yeah.
Caving in.
They used to be the board of directors, but they caved in so quickly that they have been renamed the Board of Spelunkers. So Rory's first meeting with the Board of Spelunkers, he had three things on his agenda. He told them that he had had a chat with Champ Calvo about doing mediation for the YTK case. And one of the commissioners, they had to repair the roof because one of the commissioners went through the roof when he heard that, because Rory had no authorization to do that at all. But he wanted to mediate a settlement for the YTK case. Well, that didn't work out for Rory because Mike Phillips won the YTK case. The second thing that Rory wanted to do was get rid of Mike Phillips. And without going into a lot of details, seeing how this whole Port 7 thing unwound, I can understand it, because I have a feeling that Michael Phillips couldn't or wouldn't do the same things that the Wolf, better known as Luis Rivera Baza, could and would do. So Rory wanted to get rid of Mike Phillips, said it would save a lot of money. I talked about that a minute or two ago. And then he appointed Connie Joe Shinohara to set up a task force to see if justice had been done for the Port 7. So at the very beginning, he wanted to settle it. I think the signs were all there. Rory wanted to settle these cases. He had to get rid of Mike Phillips in order to do it. And he did, with the able assistance of the Wolf, also known as Luis Baza. And the Post has taken great issue with it. So back to the editorial. How Baza and the Port Board came to the conclusion that it's okay to sign off on $307,545 for one Port 7 staffer's attorney, while others cost a fraction of that amount, raises another question. Some of these settlement agreements were supposed to be confidential until Attorney General Levin on a jet plane, who was an attorney for one of the staffers before he was elected Attorney General, about the Port 7. So far, we have not heard expressions of concern from the Guam legislature, particularly the senators who were on the committee that has oversight over the Port Authority. It doesn't take a lot for the legislature to hold oversights. So why this one isn't that much of a priority raises yet another question. The 5 settlement agreements Baza signed cost taxpayers more than $2 million. So Luis Rivera Baza, better known as the $2 million man, Port General Manager Rory Respicio has delegated this monumental task to Baza because he has a conflict of interest. Now, I know a little bit about that because a couple days after Bernadette Stern was fired at the port, guess where she went to work? She went to work for Senator Rory Respicio. So Rory made a public statement that he was recusing himself from all of these matters because of his conflict there, and that Connie Joe would handle these matters after that. I did a Freedom of Information Act request, a sunshine request, asking for public records of any paper where Rory declared that he had a conflict of interest. You would have thought that he might have said something, put something down like this. Dear Board of Directors, I'm not going to deal with the Port 7 anymore because I have a conflict of interest, and it would be unethical for me to get involved. So I won't be doing that. Your pal, Rory. But he didn't do that. The only thing that he produced was a paper that had been filed with the Civil Service Commission that said that Connie Joe would be there instead of Rory. But at the time that the port sent that, Connie Joe had already quit. So Rory's recusing himself as hokey as all the rest of this stuff. The terms of the settlements, some of which the port didn't expect to be made public, should prompt, at the very least, an oversight hearing. We know that Public Auditor Benjamin Cruz has sought the paper trail. He had asked for clarification from the Attorney General on whether the settlement deal should be kept secret, resulting in the legal opinion that made the documents public last week. Other than the public auditor, there's been an eerie silence from public officials in a case that's been costly to ratepayers so far, and for an agency that doesn't have a lot of money to play with. We rush to reinstate, and why rush to reinstate, and why the silence from everyone else? There are people who know the answers. They're just not speaking up. Will they? Well, we know one person that knows the answers, and she did speak up, and she spoke up right here on Tall Tales. That was Joanne Brown, the former manager of the Port of Guam. She spoke quite eloquently as to why she thought that the 7 busts were good busts, and it was an extremely bad move for the port to even think about settling those cases. That's where we are. We're not going to let this one go. I, of course, do have my blue pencil handy here, and it just goes without saying that the port, as you were the Post, receives the coveted blue star for today. Okay, next we go to the card. And this is what I've got on the card today. I've got Troy versus Janella. It's been 68 days now since Janella has Janella'd anybody, unless she's working on some gig employment with the legislature and Janella-ing them when it comes to the port. Probably not. And for Tina, it's been 21 days since Tina detected an emergency of such a nature, a danger to the public health or safety of the people, that Tina would have to call the legislature into special or into emergency session and waive public hearing requirements for bills. She hasn't done that for 21 days. So we ought to feel very safe right now. One of the items on this part of the card is no longer there anymore because Luis Muñoz has made a genuine withdrawal from the race for the 35th Guam legislature. She is determined that she is no longer a candidate. So after that, then we get down to Louise Monia may be gone, but she's not forgotten because she has a bill that bears some discussion. And I show that on the card as Louise Monia versus Lou, because it shows a little hostility towards the executive branch. Next on the card, I have the cancel culture versus the Democrat Party. Then I have Black Lives Matter versus white coats for Black Lives Matter. And a really interesting one that was passed on by Ray from the morning show is called Are You? Robert Underwood, are you ready? Are you ready, Real Joe Cruz?
Always ready, sir.
Yeah. This one is called Robert Underwood versus Fudge, and with added subordinate bounds involving Laura Sauder and Rube Goldberg. I'm going to pay a little allegiance to James W. Moylan and his woke bill as we're strolling through the neighborhood. Then I've got Michael San Nicolas versus apathy and Rotarians versus Lou Leon Guerrero versus the governor. So let's start out with oh, by the way, Real Joe Cruz, I didn't get the job at Pirates Cove.
Oh, man. Arr.
Yeah.
You kept your arm, huh? I see.
I thought it over, and as much as I like Jeff and as much as I like the Pirates Cove, as much as I'd really like to work there, I just couldn't see myself cutting off half of my right arm.
I'm glad you didn't, sir.
Yeah. But, you know, I'm not as woke as some of these trannies and some of these other people who want to have doctors remove perfectly functional parts of their bodies. Okay, so Louise Mooney introduced a bill, Bill 382-35, an act to add a new section to, etc., of Title 10 relative to creating the Pandemic Bill of Rights. And there's the obligatory legislative findings. The public health emergency declared as a result, and of course I have to correct the language here, changing coronavirus to Wuhan virus. The legislature finds that the state of public emergency declared as a result of the Wuhan virus shed light on numerous suspensions, restrictions, and limitations of constitutional and civil rights on Guam and throughout the U.S. U.S. Attorney General Bill Blair publicly released an official memorandum he sent to U.S. attorneys and to his Assistant Attorney General Civil Rights, stated that the Constitution isn't suspended in times of crisis for Wuhan virus. Well, tell that to Commissar Denarcy, who infringed our freedom of religion by saying the church can't have sacramental services, the Catholic Church. The legislature further finds the spirit of any protective orders during a state of public health emergency must be cognizant and considerate of the enumerated constitutional rights of a free people in a republic where the people are the masters and the government is their servant. Except when they're driving through checkpoints out here on Marine Corps Drive. Protecting the population during a pandemic should not first be limitations on civil rights, including freedom to practice religion, the Second Amendment, unreasonable searches and seizures, and due process. Churches and business can effectively and safely operate during a pandemic if government assists and guides these organizations rather than restrict, limit, or suspend the rights of the people. Now, here's a really interesting thing in this bill. Legislature further finds that the organic rights of citizens of Guam include 1421A. No law shall be enacted in Guam respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting free exercise thereof. 1421B, E, and F. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, and private property shall not be taken for public use without just compensation. 1421B, U, statutorily incorporates the first and Ninth Amendments to the Constitution, which includes the Second Amendment. That's the so-called Mink Amendment, passed in 1968. They said the First through the Ninth Amendments in the Bill of Rights are incorporated and made applicable to Guam to the extent that they weren't already applicable. 48 U.S.C. 1423B gives the legislatures the sole authority to create laws. Additionally, in a unanimous decision of the U.S. Supreme Court in the case of Timms versus Indiana, boy, I like to talk about Indiana. I'll restrain myself today. Incorporated the excessive fines clause of the Eighth Amendment in 2019. It is the intent of the legislature to protect the basic rights of its residents during declarations of public health emergencies. Section 3, a new 19406 is added to Title 10. 19406, Pandemic Bill of Rights, and it says, no executive order, agency directive, or administrative rule or regulation, etc., promulgated pursuant to a declaration of a state of public health emergency, etc., shall, A, prohibit the free exercise of religion. Where did I just hear that? Wasn't that one of the things that's one of the enumerated constitutional rights in the Organic Act? B, diminish or suspend a person's Second Amendment constitutional rights. I think I heard that one too. C, deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Wow, the guy who drafted this bill is a genius. He's coming up with all of these good ideas. Did I say guy? I shouldn't have. All right, so take a short break here and we'll come back to this.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Talk Tells with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. They're open in Agotnia for dine-in, takeout, and delivery services from Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Call them, 479-2652, and get your Mezcla fix today.
So here we are again. So I'm not going to read the rest of the Section 19406 Pandemic Bill of Rights. Obviously, the only thing that's in this Bill of Rights is the Bill of Rights from the Organic Act in the United States Constitution. So what's the point? Does the draftsman here, does Senator Luis Muñoz think that there will be greater adherence to a local statute than there is to the United States Constitution? This is not a bill. This is just a typing exercise. where she copied the provisions included in the Constitutional Bill of Rights and the Organic Act Bill of Rights and set them out as statute. So, here's a good idea for another bill here. Let me open up my Constitution here to let's see. How about a local law that says this: the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, and papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. Well, that would be a good law, wouldn't it? Well, that's exactly what the Fourth Amendment says. So what could possibly prompt anyone to introduce a bill that is just a reflection of what is already the law in the form of constitutional rights and set them out in statute? It just doesn't make any sense at all. So this bill is useless. If you wanted a pandemic Bill of Rights, what you would do would be to set forth some punishment for a government employee who violated the constitutional rights of a citizen. Any public official who would interfere with the free exercise of religion shall have committed a misdemeanor. That's a start, something like that. But this, I guess it's probably just as well that Louise is moving on to other things, because if this is her idea of what a pandemic Bill of Rights looks like, she's got a lot of homework to do. Next item on the card: cancel culture versus Democrat Party. Representative Louis Gohmert, a Republican from Texas, introduced a bill Thursday on the floor of the House that would ban the Democrat Party due to their history of supporting slavery in the Confederacy, saying that is the standard to which they are holding everyone else, so the name change needs to occur. So no more members of the Democrat Party on the floor of the House. I got Mark on the phone here. I wonder if Mark wants to talk about the pandemic Bill of Rights.
Hey, Bob. I just had a comment. Is because last week the Supreme Court actually ruled against a church that wanted to have religious services, and sided with the government of California, the state government of California.
California or Nevada, Mark?
I don't know. I think it was California.
It was Nevada.
It was Nevada. Okay, so then you're familiar with the case.
Yeah.
So, and Gorsuch wrote a really short dissenting opinion, which made a whole lot of sense. So I couldn't understand. I mean, I understand where the majority was coming from, but you're saying that the Constitution, basically trumps everything, but their interpretation of the Constitution kind of leaves you wanting, doesn't it?
Well, in that particular case, Gorsuch's dissent was, and apparently, as far as the majority is concerned, the right to gamble is more important than the free exercise of religion, because it came out of Las Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but so the tough part about a constitutional right is that the application of the right depends on the factual background in which the right is examined. So I've said on this program more than once, when we were dealing with the Catholic Church here, that I had no problem with Commissar DeNorsi prescribing rules as to how many people in the church at a given time, whether they needed to wear masks, et cetera, et cetera. But she just came out with a rule. She wrote a letter to the liturgical committee of the church saying, you can't have sacramental services. Completely different, if you see what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah. So, that is a clear violation. So a properly worded statute could reinforce the strength of a constitutional amendment. I mean, a constitutional right. But what Munya did was she just repeated the same thing that's in the Bill of Rights. So it's just a useless piece of paper.
Okay, I see where you're coming from. So basically, it falls back on whoever did the research and wrote the actual bill, because we all know senators, other than you were a one-man office. I remember that. You wrote all your own bills, but everybody else basically has somebody else writing the bills for them.
Well, and it's unfortunate that once upon a time, the Legislative Council drafted almost all the bills because the Legislative Council was the only person in the building that had something that looked like an automatic typewriter. But nowadays, with
everybody's got a computer.
Yeah, everybody's got a word processor in the office, so you can hire somebody, some high school grad for $25,000 who can put something on paper that's got an all caps heading, some flowery legislative history, and some other stuff. So why waste your money on a lawyer when that kid can do just as good? And stuff like Munya's bill is exactly what you get when you take that approach. So another way to look at it is that the legislature is a factory, and the product that they produce is laws. So you would think that the part of that factory that makes the laws would be the most well-staffed and the most visible and the most important part. It's not. It's like an afterthought. So it's no wonder we get some of the junk out of there that we get.
Okay, Bob. Well, you have a good rest of your day.
Well, you made your mark on Tall Tales today, Mark. Thanks for calling.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Right. So back to cancel culture. Yeah. Louis Gohmert introduced a bill on the floor of the House that would ban the Democratic Party from the House of Representatives due to their history of having supported slavery in the Confederacy, saying, quote, "That is a standard to which they are holding everyone else, so the name change needs to occur." Whereas on June 18, 2020, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, this is from the legislative findings, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi ordered the removal from the Capitol portraits of 4 previous speakers of the House who served in the Confederacy, saying that these portraits, quote, "set back our nation's work." All right, let's break for the big halftime show here, and we'll come back to Nancy Pelosi right after the show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Mother Nature out in full swing. Fox News, I'm Mary Corsetti. Tropical Depression Hannah came ashore near the southern tip of Texas Saturday afternoon as a Category 1 hurricane. People checking on their boats at a Gulf Coast marina in Corpus Christi, about 130 miles north. Many of their vessels were wrecked.
It's a close-knit family out here. Everybody's going to feel around.
The storm system moved well into Mexico by early Monday. The National Hurricane Center warns the greatest threat to the region will be flooding, with more than a foot of rain expected in many areas. And Hurricane Douglas bringing high winds and heavy rain to Hawaii. Fox's Ashley Strohmeyer has the latest.
Just the third hurricane in Hawaii's modern history could soon make landfall. Hurricane Douglas is threatening the most isolated state in the country. The National Hurricane Center is tracking the Category 1 storm as it swirls uncomfortably close to the islands. Residents are still preparing for winds of up to 90 miles per hour and 15 inches of rain. Hawaii Governor David Ige is closing both state offices and federal courts on the most hazardous parts of the island.
Also new tonight, a legislative proposal for the next COVID-19 relief package will likely be unveiled Monday. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin says the package will have extended unemployment benefits with 70% wage replacement. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi disagrees with that move, wanting to keep the benefits to the original $600 a week.
But it's so sad that people should have this uncertainty in their lives. At the same time, as they are bolstering the stock market, and that's not a bad thing, but trillions of dollars from the Fed, et cetera, to bolster the stock market, let's have a commensurate amount of money to bolster America's working family.
Pelosi joining CBS's Face the Nation to criticize Senate Republicans for their delay in introducing the bill. America is listening to Fox News.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña is taking your local favorite dishes and serve them with extra flair. Mezcla is ready to serve you and your family for your dine-in experience and takeout services. To ensure everyone's safety and comfort, Team Mezcla has taken further steps in maintaining a clean and sanitized area for you and your family while dining in. For more information, please call 479-2652 or 479-2653. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer staycation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,900 by calling Family Finance. Hagåtña 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo at 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
New reaction pouring in after a video posted to social media shows a couple in Minnesota wearing red face masks with swastikas to a Walmart. Police were called Saturday on a report that two shoppers were wearing the mask with the symbol used by the Nazi Party. The video shows the man and woman being confronted by others in the store. Marshall Police gave the couple no trespass notices. Walmart says it will not tolerate any form of discrimination or harassment in its business. Meanwhile, coronavirus cases are increasing in certain states, including Florida, which just surpassed New York in total cases.
Texas is trending down in its total number of cases in their 7-day average, but they are seeing a rise in COVID-19 deaths. They just reported 153 new fatalities, and Florida has now surpassed the once hard-hit state of New York in total cases with more than 423,000 infections. Florida now second in the nation in cases to California. However, Florida is still behind California and way behind New York in their number of COVID-19 fatalities. Also, there's growing concern of the virus moving up north. Dr. Birx is warning officials from at least 11 major metropolitan areas, including Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland, to take aggressive action to mitigate their outbreaks to prevent them from becoming the next COVID-19 hotspots.
Fox's Christina Coleman. And tributes continue for Congressman and civil rights icon John Lewis, who passed away July 17th. Ben Jealous, president of People for the American Way, joined Fox's America's News headquarters to remember Lewis.
John was a hero. This is what one of our national heroes looks like. Somebody who was a bridge, who brought us together, who lifted us just by his moral authority.
And Oscar-winning actress Olivia de Havilland, best known as Melanie in Gone with the Wind, has died. Her publicist said the actress died peacefully of natural causes on Sunday at her home in Paris. She was 104. I'm Mary Corsetti, and this is Fox News.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumon, or call 646-1463.
Hofade, this is Kayla from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated team in Guam and the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
They're back. Any footlong is a $5 footlong when you buy one at regular price. At participating locations, Subway, eat fresh.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
Makes me want to go out, grab a broomstick out of the broom closet and go right outside and start marching. Right, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
It's such great music. We love it. We love it every day. Okay, so much for the big halftime show that you've all been looking forward to. Let's go back to the House of Representatives. But before I do, I've got to tip my hat to two people who got the right answer. Remember during the Second Amendment portion of the program, I mentioned that a representative from Georgia had introduced a draconian gun control bill, but I also mentioned that he was one member, they were one member of the House of Representatives that really cared a lot about Guam because they were afraid that any more military resources located on the island would cause the island to, as he said, tip over and capsize. Well, Roque, Martinez, is that his name? Roque Mike Martinez and Donna Mila Titano got the right answer here. It was Representative Hank Johnson. Yeah, you remember, don't you, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Hank Johnson in a House hearing when an admiral was testifying before the House of Representatives on some kind of an appropriation bill, and Representative Johnson said, well, I'm a little worried about moving those Marines and more stuff to Guam. It's a small island. Won't it just tip over and capsize? So Hank kind of immortalized himself as far as Guam is concerned with that remark. Okay, so we're back with Nancy Pelosi and this bill that Representative Gomer introduced to not allow Democrats on the floor of the House unless they change their name. He goes on to say, whereas on June 18, 2020, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi ordered the removal from the Capitol portraits of 4 previous speakers of the House who served in the Confederacy, saying these portraits, quote, set back our nation's work to confront and combat bigotry. Gomer said the men depicted in the portraits were Democrat Robert Hunter, Democrat Howell Cobb, Democrat James Orr, and Democrat Charles Crisp. All four of them were Democrats. Resolved that the Speaker of the House shall remove any item that named symbolizes or mentions any political organization or party that has ever held a public position that supported slavery or the Confederacy from any area within the House wing of the Capitol or any House office building, and shall donate such item or symbol to the Library of Congress, and that any political organization or party that has ever held a public position that supported slavery or the Confederacy shall either change its name or be barred from participation in the House of Representatives. And Gomar tweeted, "The time has come for Democrats to acknowledge their party's loathsome and bigoted past and consider changing their party's name if something isn't so blatantly and offensively tied to slavery, Jim Crow, discrimination, and KKK. Cancel the Democrats." As outlined in the resolution, a great portion of the history of the Democrat Party is filled with racism and hatred, Gohmert said in a statement. Since people are demanding we rid ourselves of the entity symbols and remind us of the repugnant aspects of our past, then the time has come for Democrats to acknowledge their party's loathsome and bigoted past and consider changing their party's name to something that isn't so blatantly and offensively tied to slavery, Jim Crow, discrimination, and the Ku Klux Klan. As the country watches violent leftists burn our cities, turn down our statues, and call upon every school, military base, and city street to be renamed, it's important to note that past atrocities these radical claim to be so violently offensive were largely committed by members in good standing of the Democrat Party. Whether it be supporting the most violent forms of racism or actively working against civil rights legislation, Democrats in this country perpetuated these abhorrent forms of discrimination and violence practically since their party's inception. To avoid triggering innocent bystanders by their racist past of the Democrat Party, I would suggest they change their name. That is a standard to which they are holding everyone else. So the name change needs to occur. I couldn't agree more. In my lifetime, certainly before 1960, when I first started to vote, when I first voted in 1960, there was the, quote, solid South. The former states of the Confederacy all voted Democrat. The Democrat Party was the same thing as the general election because they never elected Republicans. The famous senators, Stennis, Thurman, etc., a whole list of senators were arch segregationists, and they were all Democrats. So according to the rules that the left wing of the Democrat Party has laid out, they should be canceled. And no one should call himself a Democrat anymore. I have a suggestion that instead of calling themselves the Democrat Party, they should call themselves the Redskin Party, since they're not going to let the Washington football team use it anymore. Yeah, it's really ironic that the Democrats are doing that. And I mentioned this the other day on Tall Tales. Up until just a couple of years ago, the Republicans and Democrats each had their big annual dinner. The Republicans would have their Lincoln Day dinner, like $50 a ticket, and the party faithful would be out selling tickets, and you'd get together with all the party faithful of the Republicans for the Lincoln Day dinner. And the Democrats did the same thing. They called theirs the Jefferson-Jackson Day dinner until, they started saying, well, anybody that had slaves, they can't have any. Well, unfortunately for them, both Thomas Jefferson and Andrew Jackson owned slaves, so they don't have a Jefferson-Jackson dinner anymore. I think probably instead of a Jefferson-Jackson Day dinner, they'll probably have a Sharpton and Jackson dinner. Right, Rojo Cruz?
Yes, sir.
The Justice Twins that Rush talks about all the time. Jackson, what's his name?
Sharpton?
Yeah, Sharpton and Jackson, the Justice Brothers. Okay, well, trying to stay woke here, or not stay woke, but deal with wokeness a little bit more. Next item on my card is Black Lives Matter versus white coats for Black Lives Matter. Now, you'll recall that about a month ago, a group of doctors and nurses, etc., gathered at the Paseo at Skinner Plaza and knelt for 8 minutes and 46 seconds wearing their white coats, letting everybody know that they supported Black Lives Matter and that they were white coats for Black Lives Matter, causing me to explain what Vladimir Ilyich Lenin meant when he used the term useful idiots. But the doctors and nurses got a good chance to do some virtue signaling to show how woke they were. And I suppose they could say, well, we're not racist. That's why we're out here. So this is the kind of, this is where they are. I have an article here from WND website. The Black Lives Matter movement. Saul Alinsky would be proud. While Saul Alinsky can be connected directly to both Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, I'm not aware that such a clear connection exists between the founders of the Black Lives Matter movement and Alinsky, who died in 1972. But there's no doubt they share his philosophy of cultural revolution. Is that what you're for, doctors and nurses? Cultural revolution? In his insightful 2009 mini-book, Barack Obama's Rules for Evolution, the Alinsky model, David Horowitz quoted an SDS radical who wrote, quote, "The issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution." As Horowitz explained, in other words, the cause, whether inner city blacks or women, is never the real cause, but only an occasion to advance the real cause, which is the accumulation of power to make the revolution. That was all-consuming focus of Alinsky and his radicals. When it comes to Black Lives Matter, the purported issue, namely that Black Lives Matter, is not the ultimate issue. Instead, a larger cultural revolution is the ultimate issue. As many have noted, the founders of Black Lives Matter are both Marxists and radical feminists, with 2 of the 3 women identifying as queer activists. And so the mantra that Black Lives Matter specifically means blacks who are victims of white police brutality. Black lives in the womb do not matter. Blacks getting gunned down in gang violence do not matter. Black toddlers killed in random shootings do not matter. Not even blacks killed by black police officers matter, at least not nearly as much as blacks killed by white officers. Those white officers, in turn, represent the larger system, which, we are told, is fundamentally racist, and it is the system that needs to be overthrown. Thus, the issue is never the issue. The issue is the revolution. If the issue were the issue, then Black Lives Matter should have been applauding President Trump's efforts to introduce police reform. Instead, Trump is vilified as a white supremacist and racist, and Black Lives Matter want him removed. In fact, that is one of their stated goals. As for police, their very existence is part of the oppressive system. They must be defunded and abolished, and attacks on them are justified. Of course, it doesn't take a sociology professor to understand that the Black Lives Matter movement is not primarily focused on well-being of the Black American community. After all, what is the connection between police brutality and statues of Christopher Columbus? There is no connection other than the revolutionary logic that says white police brutality is part of America's racist heritage, which started with slavery. And Christopher Columbus, who discovered America, enslaved native inhabitants of the West Indies. Therefore, the name Black Lives Matter, in the name of Black Lives Matter, his statue must be destroyed. And so on. As for synagogues, that's easy. The Jews are always part of the oppressive system. The Jews are always evil. Everyone hates the Jews, according to Black Lives Matter. Terry Crews was right to say to CNN's Don Lemon, there are some very militant type forces in Black Lives Matter, and what I was issuing was a warning that extremes can really go far and wild. Absolutely. We see the wild extremes on the streets of our cities every day, and plenty of extremists are young whites, some of whom are more into revolution than justice. But Black lives are not the primary issue. Instead, the revolution is. Thus, over time, the concern about blacks being killed by police will be drowned out by the larger call to overthrow America as we know it. Now, that sounds like, people are saying, oh, come on, Bob, let's get serious. That's a little over the top, isn't it? I don't think it is. If you look at what's going on in Portland, Seattle, Chicago, Louisville, etc., not only do we have these violent revolutionary extremists, but we have state and city officials caving into them. And we have doctors and nurses who ought to know better, signing up. Oh, yeah, we're white coats for Black Lives Matter. And we have even Hope Cristobal is a Black Lives Matter supporter. Just ask Paul Zerzan. So this is a invidious sort of virus-type infection that's filtering through the population. Going on, Black Lives Matter is playing by the book, Alinsky's book. For good reason, Gregory A. wrote on themedium.com, it's time to stop supporting this anti-American organization that's working to sow division, spread lies, and destroying the country. Their playbook comes straight from Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky, who has dedicated his book to Lucifer. They aren't looking for unity, but to destroy anyone who doesn't agree with their radical Marxist philosophy. Black Lives Matter leaders know how to cause chaos and turn us against each other. Individuals and corporations must stop pandering to this organization that is working to tear the country apart. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me see who wants to chime in about Saul Alinsky here. Senator Chris Duenas on the line. Good afternoon, Chris.
Happy day, Mr. My Favorite Marine, talk show host, Senator, Honorable Judge. How are you doing today?
Really good, Chris.
So, I didn't have much on Saul Alinsky. I had more of a comment or a discussion, maybe a discussion I would have with you. I hope it makes the card tomorrow. Not sure if you saw the latest release from the Republican Party of Guam.
Concerning?
concerning, well, it's good then. So I'm sure you'll probably see it in media cycles and maybe get a copy of it soon. But I think it's something that certainly Bob Klitzkie, former senator, and certainly someone who espoused a lot of the principles in this release will appreciate, and hope it's on the card tomorrow. But essentially what it calls attention to is something that I think is has been mentioned by our friend Frenchie before. It really calls out the administration on completely ignoring the fiscal realities of what's going on in our community. And it squarely discusses that more than likely that is a reflection of anticipating or trying to anticipate being able to stave off any bad fiscal news in order to maintain a Democrat majority. It really hits hard and speaks to the fact that there's been no discussion on the devastation of the tourism industry and the fact that it's going to take at least a year, if not more. Things that we've been talking about, Bob, at least a year or more to recover. It talks, really a lot about how small businesses are being affected and suffering. It talks about how the Chamber of Commerce has been very vocal and very loud. I mean, not just in the last few weeks, but for months, about the policies of this current administration. And it talks about the silence of the legislature. And, as you know, Bob, my career hasn't been perfect, and no one's is. I've made my share of mistakes. But the one thing that I think is important is that you have a legislature that has an adversarial position. And I've always appreciated your position on that, Bob.
Okay.
I've always appreciated your advocacy for the fact that regardless of harmony of interest or a real, a partisan difference, the fact of the matter is it's that simple exercise of ensuring that there's that healthy debate, and it really calls on the silence of this legislature as pretty much being deafening.
I agree, Chris. Darrell Taggarty explained it by saying that a well-functioning legislature is like a pair of scissors, two sharp blades working against one another to cut through things.
I always enjoy it when you discuss that analogy. Just in closing, I really I've been in a number of interviews with folks who have asked me about my candidacy and the like, and this really has been a topic with questions from the former administration, policies and the thought and basically the process at which we just dealt with issues. I know that particularly when the budgetary matters came to a head on the Trump tax cuts, a lot of the issues you saw the public auditor, decry fiscal cliff. You saw the current public auditor, who was then the speaker, discussing the fact that there certainly was going to be a huge impact of those cuts, and then you had a very vocal majority at that time of Democrat senators who basically held the administration, held us to task. And so the 1% reduction or the increase in the BPT was designed to sunset. But then it didn't in this current in this current legislature, which was the most vocal against the former governor and the administration in terms of fiscal policy. And so I think that when discussing the issue of having to reconcile those issues, the reality is that is the role of the legislature. The former governor had to contend with that. The final bill that came out that I believe was unanimously passed was a sunset provision of the implementation of the increase of 1% of the BPT. And it was designed also because you had members on the floor like Frank Uggan and others who really put key initiatives in to streamline government. At that time, before this current fiscal year budget was passed, I haven't seen the audit on it, but there was a discussion that the government was able to cut 30 or maybe in excess of $30 million. So the capability is there. I think the real discussion right now is this legislature has been extremely silent, and I think it's costing the business community and the taxpayers a great deal of pain.
Well, let's hope it costs some senators their seat next time, Chris.
I appreciate always having the opportunity to discuss this on your show, Bob, and I think you're really gonna like that release, and I think you're going to see that it definitely does have standing with Republican values, but also just community values of proper fiscal management, and also discussing opportunities that the chambers discussed as looking at future economic opportunities. But that's far down the road. Right now, the government has to keep itself in check.
True
Thanks,
enough,
Bob.
Chris. Okay, good talking to you, Chris. Thanks for calling. Chris Duenas, also known as a fiscal hawk. All right, let's break for the seventh inning stretch.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
They're back. Any foot long is a $5 foot long when you buy one at regular price. At participating locations, Subway, eat fresh.
Talk Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties, doing real estate since 1978, 14 years, right here on Guam. Call Maria Miller from Horizon Properties at 777-7792.
So here we are, seventh inning stretch, Wrigley Field, Chicago, Illinois, and there's nobody in the wait, I see someone stumbling around out here in the bleachers, center field bleachers in Wrigley Field in Chicago. I think, whoa, I see. It's our Carl. Our Carl, what are you doing in Chicago?
Thought I'd surprise you.
Very good, our Carl. What can you, now that I've stumbled across you in the center field bleachers at Wrigley Field, what can you tell me that I don't know, our Carl?
Yeah, I was listening to a conversation between you and Chris Duenas, and those magical words came up, Republican majority. I've heard those words before. I voted straight line Republican for as long as I can remember. And eventually, after the Juan Patin pay raise smash and grab issue happened, and I started reading some of Chris Duenas' writings, and your writings and thoughts on the matter, I began to realize there's not that much magic about that R after someone's name. A great deal depends on the quality of the candidates. We've had a Republican majority nationally, and we've had controlled the House, controlled the Senate, and had a Republican president all at the same time for a period, one or more periods, and a lot of stuff just kept happening. Now, when Newt Gingrich, who was a firebrand, came on the scene, he was able to rally the troops and actually get some things done. And so I think if we're looking at a Republican majority locally, we're looking at 8. If we could get one, two, or three that are real committed and firebrands and have kind of a take no prisoners attitude, something can get done. As far as dealing with the hospital, our decaying schools, the decaying prison, having a constitution made, all these big issues that just keep getting kicked down the road. While our elected officials keep chasing these bright, shiny objects around. I'm very skeptical about that title, Republican majority. A great deal depends on what kind of Republicans are they. If we can get a few that are really have a sense of urgency and want to get things done, and as you did, have the attitude, look, I'm coming in here for maybe a couple of terms, that's it, and then I'm out. I'm going back to private sector. I've got a business to run. I've got things to get done, but I want to help the island, and so I'm going to commit a couple of terms to doing what needs to get done. The only way I see that happening is people with that kind of attitude coming in is a part-time legislature. As long as you have a full-time legislature and people have all the time in the world to chase bright, shiny objects and waste time, it's not going to happen as far as I'm concerned. And you won't attract the quality of candidates that we desperately need to get things done. They can't do it. They can't give up what they're doing now, their successful careers, to go full time into the legislature and become career bureaucrats. It's just not going to happen.
I agree, Carl. I'm still pushing for that part-time legislature, and I'm waiting for the candidate to come out and say, vote for me, because the first thing I do when I get into the legislature will introduce a bill to take it part-time. My analysis of the electorate is that a reasonably credible candidate who can get that message out will win. But unfortunately, we're faced with so many candidates who would rather, if there are only two choices, would rather run for a full-time legislature than lose, or then run for a part-time legislature than win. Because if you want a part-time legislature and you get it, what's the point? You're not going to make enough money. You're not going to be able to do the junkets. You're not going to be able to have the manservant, the maidservant, the chauffeur, the footman, all the perks that our senators seem to enjoy so much. So I'm really hoping that some good people come forward and advance that cause, because I agree with you. It's the only way we'll get our government on track, because the legislature, this current legislature and legislatures made of professional politicians, don't have the moral high ground necessary to start cleaning up the executive branch. And until they have that moral high ground, they won't be able to do it. And the way they get it is just what we're talking about, a part-time legislature of citizens and not career politicians.
Yeah, they're looking at the wrong things. Some people think, well, if we just had the right number of senators, things would really change. If we had 21. There was even one senator who came on the air, I won't mention any names, but she actually seriously said she would love to see 100 senators. I mean, talk about the Politburo, the Russian Politburo.
Sure.
I mean, wow. And this was dead serious. The problem isn't 18 or 21 or 100. The problem is the quality of candidates that we're enticing in, and the people we're encouraging to come in want to make a career of being bureaucrats, and that's the last thing we need. We need people who are antsy to get stuff done. And once you take away all those perks, as you mentioned, people who really have motives of coming in to do stuff, work on this giant fluorescent elephant, the Guam Memorial Hospital, our school system, and the prison. And all these things we need to do to work with our representative in Congress to advance, to increase to improve our position with America. To, as you say, what do you say? To improve our position within the empire of America the best we can. And that's not going to happen. Look at what's happened just in this last term. That's why I give this legislature a grade of F, if not an F minus. Has anything happened with GMH? Anything?
I think your F minus is more charitable than Ray Gibson, who grades them even lower than that.
Yeah, as long as a legislature can spend 2 years and at the end of it you see no advancement at all. I'm not talking about like miraculous overnight cures, but let's see some real progress here on these giant fluorescent pink elephants in the room, right in the middle of the room, staring at us. If you see no advancement on these gigantic issues, including our position, within the American empire, I grade them F. That's just all there is to it.
Me too, Carl.
Anyway, thank you for allowing me to do a minor rant. I do appreciate it, Bob.
Always good to talk to you, Carl. Thanks for calling. So we had a short break here for the home stretch, and down the home stretch, I'm going to be riding with our Fred.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, launch! That's just what we did with our new state-of-the-art mobile banking app as we celebrate 66 years of serving our island communities. It's loaded with a ton of new user-friendly features, including remote deposit capture. It's another way of saying you don't have to come to the bank to go to the bank. And if you want to come to the bank, we're happy to see your smiling face as long as you wear a mask. And we don't have long lines. Bank Pacific, Rosebud branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña is taking your local favorite dishes and serve them with extra flair. Mezcla is ready to serve you and your family for your dine-in experience and takeout services. To ensure everyone's safety and comfort, Team Mezcla has taken further steps in maintaining a clean and sanitized area for you and your family while dining in. For more information, please call 479-2652 or 479-2653. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
So here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky, the home stretch. And I'm going to be riding down that home stretch this afternoon with none other than our Fred. Good afternoon,
Hi.
our Fred.
Hi, Bob. Good afternoon.
Yes, sir.
I hate the home stretch because that means you're going to be off the air in 20 minutes.
16 minutes and I'm gone, our Fred.
See if you can extend your show from 12 noon to 6 p.m. I love your show.
I think the real Joe Cruz and I would really like to do that, and certainly we have enough to talk about, but
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. Ray can do 6 to 12, and you do 12 to 6. That'll be awesome.
And the real Joe Cruz can cover both shows.
I know. So I wanted to echo what our Carl had said and re-echo it and put the writing on the wall because he said it just like, I think just like how the public opinion is. You got 2 years, you had the last 2 years, then you had the last 2 years, and then you had the last 2 years, and nothing got done. We heard the platforms every 2 years, and why do we need another 2? So to all the incumbents, why do you need another 2 years when you had the 2 years to do it? Right, Bob?
I agree. I agree.
Right? So when they dangle the carrot in front of you, like hospital and education and public safety, when they dangle that in front of the public's eyes for the vote, where was the last 2 years? What happened the last 2 years? How come that didn't get done? And the last 2 and how many decades have passed? Nothing got done. So Carl is right, and that's the writing on the wall. And nothing, or if anything, has changed. This pandemic has, if there was any good that could have been brought to Guam and the businesses, and if any relief or any help that could have been brought to the island was not brought, and if it was a little too late. Like that saying goes, a little too late, or something like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, more could have been done, more can still be done, but it's like everything is at a standstill. So what's going on is they keep dangling the carrot in front of us every 2 years, and it's the same carrot, by the way. It's probably rotted away already by now. And we're like, oh, yes, we want that. Oh, yes, we want that. Yes, let's vote you in. Just to find out that nothing happened. So, I mean, Guam this time has to, and yes, Carl is right about candidates, the quality. Well, you know, I don't think it should be about Republican or Democrat. It's about the quality of candidates, like you said, and it's about public servant, not self-servant. And we need to remember why are we in there. It's public service, public servant, better Guam, better for the people. I mean, they'll get their paycheck no matter what. That's coming. But serve I mean, you got to have heart. You got to serve the community. I mean, where's the humanity? Where's the love for the island? That's got to take first dibs on is on love for the island and love for the people, not self-servant or self-service.
I couldn't agree more, Fred.
But that's what's going on every 2 years. So yeah, quality of candidates and maybe the love for the people and love for the island, like genuinely. Oh, there's that word, genuinely. Loving the island and not loving it for oneself. So hopefully that, sheds some light, and we can get quality candidates who genuinely love Guam and want to do something. But if they're going to sing the same song every 2 years, we already know that song. That song is old already, so. All right, Bob, that's what I had to say, and see what you want to elaborate on.
Always
Thank
good.
you.
Always good
Thank
to talk to you, our Fred. Yes, sir. That was our Fred. Our Carl followed by our Fred. Yeah. So our Fred. Both of the hours made good points. I think what we're looking for is performance, not self-service. There's an interesting post here that I'm going to read from Don Ed Kalani. Don says, should all Republican candidates prioritize and emphasize being pro-life in our official Guam GOP platform? And should a GOP majority in the 36th Guam legislature prioritize balancing the budget without adding more debt to our $2 billion territorial debt? Do you understand the question, real Joe Cruz? Should all Republican candidates come out with a strong pro-life stance? Should that be part of the Republican platform? Should part of the Republican platform be balanced budget, no more debt? I'd have to say yes.
Of course.
And not only, if that were the Republican party platform, not only would it make me happy, I think it would be a winning platform, because I think most people on the island are anti-abortion. More than 60% are anti-abortion. But because of wokeism and other things, a lot of people don't talk about it much, but they don't have to talk when they go in the ballot box into the booth and mark that ballot for candidates that are pro-life. And I think the public is crying out for fiscal responsibility in the government. Everybody talks about it. Nobody ever wants to do it. So that would be my 2 cents worth on that subject. I think the real Joe Cruz agrees with me, right, real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Does your sidekick there, Jose Martinez?
Yes, sir.
He agrees also.
I'm just saying yes, sir, for him. I believe he would agree.
All right, good deal. Okay, next item on the card here. I've got about 9 minutes. Menno Franklin, A.K. Bunker, son of Guam, man of the land, man of the wrench, simple vision, get it done with common sense, innovation. Who is Franklin Mano? Is he a candidate?
I believe so, sir.
Yeah, he's got a little work. He's got a little work to do on name ID, I think. Yeah, so you're spending a little time here talking about running for the legislature. I would advise anyone who wants to be a senator to take a blank piece of paper and sit down in a quiet room and write out a 1-paragraph statement of why you want to be a why you want to be a senator. And I don't mean, the usual flowery statements, I want to serve the people, or I want to help Guam, or I want to give back to the community. Sit down and write out what it is that you want to do. If I could have a moment to be a little bit self-laudatory here, could I have your permission for that, real Joe Cruz?
Sure, sir.
As though I ever needed anyone's permission, right? I wanted, when I ran for legislature, I wanted to do several things, but the biggie was the Every Child Act. And it was hard. It took a long time, but I finally did it. That was the reason that I ran. And when I got the Every Child Act through the 28th Guam legislature, I didn't run for re-election. Not because I didn't have it in me, not because I didn't think I could do a little bit more, but self-imposed term limits. My experience is that the longer people hang around there, the less dedicated they become, because it's a very seductive, at the same time coercive atmosphere. There are all kinds of people trying to get you to do what they want, seducing you to come along, and there are all kinds of people who will attempt to coerce you to do what they want. And spending a long time, year after year, around there, it's not healthy. So a person should decide what it is why he wants to be a senator, and write it down, not for anybody else, not to put it in your campaign material, but for yourself. And get it out and read it every once in a while, just to refresh your recollection. And then you need to have a message. Your message is the 2 or 3 things that you want people to know about you and what you are going to do as a senator. And your message, again, 3 short paragraphs is all that it takes. And whatever you do or say should be grounded in your message. Because my rule is that a credible candidate with a message that resonates with the public is going to be able, and who gets his message out, who communicates his message, has a very good chance of being elected. Now, when I say resonates with the public, a few years ago, there was a person who ran on parole reform. Well, that's an important subject, right? I'll give you a better example. Ben Servino, who has run DISIT on a couple of occasions, his platform was to improve the lot of people with disabilities. That's a very admirable undertaking. Does it resonate with the general public? No. So if that's what you want to do, You have to have some other message to propel you into the legislature that does resonate with the public. It's one of the old sayings is that also-rans don't make policy. So if you have a message that resonates with the public and you communicate it, you get it out, you got a pretty good chance of being elected. Obviously, name ID is very, very important. Retail campaigning, which is going to be really hard this time around, but to get out in public, get around, shake hands, kiss baby. If someone will let you kiss their baby, they'll love you forever. They'll vote for you every time you run. Shake hands, kiss babies, do all that kind of stuff. Try to be as open and friendly as you possibly can. Try to appear that way. Spend your money on, I used to say, spend your money on radio and TV. Nobody got elected because he had great signs or because he handed out really cool caps. I'm sorry, I'm using the wrong word here. Or because they handed out really hats, caps, or beer can sleeves, or no, that's just a waste of money. Radio, TV, and social media is what you need to get elected. Talk show hosts, some of the cheapest publicity you can get. Call the talk shows, but when you do, make sure you have something to say. And I listen to a lot of talk show hosts, including this one, and I hear people call talk show hosts that purport to be candidates and really don't have anything to say. You know, you can only stretch the good morning, how are you out for so long. So these are just some of the things that I think it takes to be a candidate. But the most important thing is to write out that one paragraph as to why you want to be a senator. And if you can't do that, if you can't articulate it and you can't write it down, then don't do it. Because you won't be a very good candidate. You probably won't get elected. And if you do, you're not going to be a very happy camper. So much for the short course on campaigning, Don. But I think you've got two good issues there, anti-abortion and fiscal responsibility. I think those are two messages that do resonate with the public. So if I think Don Ed Kalani's a candidate too, isn't he?
Correct, sir.
Yeah. So you got to work on the name ID a little bit, Don. Posting on Facebook on Tall Tales, of course, exposes you to the international radio listening audience Facebook gang. But you might want to think in terms of calling and explaining what it is, why you want to run for the legislature. I've got a really good item on the calendar here. The next item, it's called Robert Underwood versus Fudge. And it's about this program or this hearing that the House is going to have about voting for Guam. And I want to give it a lot of time, so I'll start the program with that tomorrow. Guam and voting, Robert Underwood, U.S. Congress. So I'll see you then.